caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet, KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. This is Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
I don't know what to say. Welcome to Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Melby. That's Tom Stevens.
That's me.
This is virgin territory for our show. Nebraska won a football game against a football bowl subdivision.
Wait a minute, Mike. Let me check again. You're right. They did. I just checked. They did win that game.
First time in 364 days, Nebraska wins a football game against an FBS opponent. 35-21 was the final at Memorial Stadium last night over the Indiana Hoosiers. And it was an interesting game. It was fun to watch. It was frustrating to watch. You saw so many things that Nebraska has done poorly over the last 4 years that they continued to do poorly, just not quite as bad. And then you saw so many things that they've done poorly over the last 4 years that they didn't do poorly at all. You saw changes. You saw improvement. You saw a difference. And I'll be honest, I didn't know if we would.
It was fun to watch. We were just talking to DP as he left. He goes, "This is what it feels like."
Yeah.
This is, and I felt the same way because you almost feel like it's one of those things. The clock's over, right? It's zeros, right? That's the first win over an FBS opponent in 364 days. This is what it feels like to smile. I know it's Indiana. They're not very good. They're not going to win the national title, I don't think, this year, but they were 3-1. They were 3-1, and they have a win over Illinois. Illinois, pretty good football team, just beat Wisconsin yesterday.
Yeah, Illinois is the darling of the West now.
That's right. So, and we talked about it before the show, Mike. I don't care who you're playing. If you're playing my alma mater, Lincoln High, they weren't able to tackle North Dakota or Georgia Southern. And they played a Big Ten team, and they actually tackled them on a regular basis last night. I mean, there's no other explanation. Same uniforms, same team, same guys wearing the uniforms, different coach after a bye week.
Yeah,
different coach. There was a different feel to Nebraska football last night. There just was.
Let's be honest. I mean, it's the first time that they closed the deal after getting punched back in the mouth. Nebraska football over the last 4 years has always been good at throwing a haymaker and landing early in a game for the most part. And even throughout the game, they continue to do so. But then ultimately what winds up happening is they take one swing so hard that they hit themselves, right? Knock themselves out and lose the football game. Yeah. Last night, the I'll be honest with you, the biggest things that to me were game-changing mistakes were made by the coaching staff with substitutions, with play calls.
Why is Chubba Purdy in the game in that situation on the 8-yard line?
Yeah, I don't disagree with Casey Thompson made a not a great decision. The play before the series before.
Don't call the plays that you called.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have put my freshman quarterback. I understand he has a little experience in Division I football, but I wouldn't put my quarterback in that situation to throw a pass against a blitz, a potential blitz. I mean, it could happen on any down. And it was kind of a freak play. He lands on a dude, so he fumbles it away. But still, I thought it was a bad situation to put your quarterback in. Nonetheless, you kind of felt like if that's a Scott Frost coach team, that was probably the turning point of the game. Maybe it was a good thing that happened to the team at that moment. That you're up 7, you're maybe about to take a stranglehold on the game, and your freshman quarterback not only takes a safety, he gives up a touchdown. So the old Nebraska probably would have said, okay, that's good night, everybody. We're out. And they didn't. So maybe it was a good thing that happened to them that they got tested, not only 7-7, then they go up 21-7, then it's 21-21, and you're thinking, okay, now the collapse happened. But it didn't again. Nebraska shuts them out in the second half. They win 35-21.
How similar was the second half last night to the second half of the Michigan State game last year? Defense played spectacular. Now, they allowed a couple of first downs, which they didn't do against Michigan State in the second half last year. But guess what? They found a way to lose the game.
Yep.
And instead, last night, they found a way to win the game. And last night, for the first time, I swear all season, I know it probably happened at some point, but preseason, all we heard from the now former defensive coordinator was we got to get O'Shawn Mathis, Caleb Tanner, and Garrett Nelson on the field at the same time.
Right.
We got to figure out a way. Wow, last night, without him involved, all three were on the field at the same time a couple of times, and one of the biggest plays, big third down late in the game, and they flushed Blazik out to the right. He throws an incomplete pass, but you had all three of them who beat their guy, and one came on a blitz. He was covering slot, but slid in, and the safety flipped over. But it was one of those where you're like, where the hell has that been?
You saw deflections time and time again. I don't know how many passes defended last night, but it had to be a record for this team for a while. We saw that from CTB last year. I mean, he could defend some passes, but he was a rarity. I mean, he was the one. And last year's squad, probably not a good example because that was a good defense last year. And Shenander deserved, after last year's defense, probably to come back. But what happened with the 1-3 start, or 1-2 start before he's fired? I mean, yeah, he should be gone. He should be gone because it looked like they quit. And I'll say this, you rarely see this in college football. A team that looks like it's just cashed it in. I've punched my ticket. Good night. They rarely come back up on stage and and do the encore. It's just done for the night or done for the season. But this team looked like a team that said, you know what, those first 4 games, that wasn't us. Those really were different guys in that uniform that you saw, and we're going to prove it to you by the way we play. And they played with a passion that I haven't seen all season for sure. Yes, I saw some of that last year. Couldn't close it, though.
Yeah,
that was the theme last year. The worst, best team ever, right? And probably last year's team would have found a way to lose that game. This year's team found a way to win the game. And it was just fun to have a beverage after the game and do it in celebration, not because, oh my God, I got to have a beverage,
Exactly.
of the adult variety. Let's get to the starting gate and open the show as we always do. Let you know everything that may have happened in Husker land this week and the world of sports. Here's Mike Melvin. You have an update from the volleyball game?
That's actually just what I was doing. I wanted to update it because they just completed the second set. Nebraska was down 7-2 in the first set, went on what I believe was a 12-1 run, ultimately won the first set 25-18. They just closed out the second set 25-23. They lead Maryland 2 sets to none, and third set coming up here shortly. By the way, we will be speaking with Tanya Taki next hour. We'll discuss a little bit about Nebraska's big win on Friday night against Rutgers, and now today they're up 2-0 against Maryland. In college football yesterday, Georgia survived an upset scare from Missouri to win 26-22. Bama pulled away in the fourth quarter from Arkansas to win 49-26. Number 7, Kentucky upset by Ole Miss 22-19. They turned the ball over 3 straight times in the fourth quarter in Ole Miss territory, 1 time on downs and then 2 fumbles, and they ultimately go down to Ole Miss. Brett Favre has been linked to the largest ever public corruption case in the state of Mississippi as he allegedly asked Nancy New, the founder of the Mississippi Community Education Center, to funnel welfare money intended for Mississippi's neediest families to him so that he can give it to Southern Miss in his name to help support their athletic department. Then Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant was, quote unquote, on board with the entire scheme, according to a text message between Favre and New that was discovered in the investigation. Yeah, this is not going to end well. I think Brett Favre's going to jail. On Thursday, less than 100 hours removed from what looked like an obvious concussion suffered by the Dolphins' Tua Tagovailoa against the Bills, where he was allowed to return to the game in the second half. He was allowed to play against the Bengals on Thursday night and suffered another concussion.
Yeah.
The fallout from this should be, and I hope is, huge.
I know Turner, their trainer, got fired. It felt like, oh, we'll just fire this dude, blame it all on him, and we're scot-free. I hope that's not the case, because you can say it's all the trainer's fault, but come on.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
The video that every other human being on the planet that has watched went, yeah, that guy's got a concussion. That's pretty obvious.
Right. And I thought that you made a good point before the show. Maybe some of the teammates should have stepped up as well and taken a stand on this.
It's one of the few times I've ever agreed with Stephen A. Smith. His rants are normally just all about him being able to yell louder than the next guy, and his points are normally
pretty
hollow.
loud. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a very true statement. But he made the comment. He goes, his teammates are culpable in this as well. Yeah. Because how do you, as a man, look at your brother that's your teammate, see what you saw, and be okay, not stand up and say, hey, coach, like, I get you got medical people here, but what is going on? He should not be playing.
The good news is hopefully he's okay. Okay.
That's the key,
he has been at home. Hopefully he's okay. And this will shine a brighter light on the concussion stuff. I mean, that maybe actually people start following the rules. That would be nice.
It would be.
They're in place. So you follow the rules, not so you say it's a shoulder when we all saw his head bang on the ground and get a concussion.
Yeah. Aaron Judge hit home run number 61 on Wednesday night to tie Roger Maris's AL record of 61. Judge is also trying to win the Triple Crown. He's currently hitting .313. Luis Oranz of Minnesota is hitting .315. He does have healthy leads in the home run and RBI categories. That's going to wrap up the starting gate.
You know what? I want to save the Mickey Joseph stuff, I think, for the next hour, because I want to delve into Mickey Joseph, because I think he is flying high for both of us. I mean, a lot of Husker fans were thinking, he's an interim coach. We'll see what he can do. We'll give him, 9 games and see what he can do. I think from what I saw last night, that guy looked like a head coach, right? That he has a presence about him. I know he doesn't have the experience, but he gets Nebraska to 6, and the number at one time for a lot of people was 7 or 8. You get Nebraska to 6 from where they were just a couple of weeks ago. I think he deserves consideration as the next head coach at Nebraska.
I'll be honest, I never had him in my top anything. I was like, he's a great guy. I hope he stays on the staff. But he has proven to me that he's a guy that needs to be considered after seeing the changes. I get it. It's one game. I get it. It's Indiana. I don't care. We've seen Nebraska stub their toe and look like they don't belong on the field. It didn't
matter who they were playing. Again, North Dakota. I mean, that was not a well-played game. And Georgia Southern might turn out to be a decent team this year, but they're not great for sure. And now we're finding out Oklahoma is really pretty bad.
Yeah.
Really a bad football team. They were destroyed by TCU yesterday. And TCU turns out to be, they're a pretty good football team, but still, that's a completely different team than I saw play Oklahoma.
I know you were at the game, sitting at home watching. I don't know if you were able to catch much of it on TV, but at the end of the game, seeing Trev Alberts on the sideline and just the look on his face, and he was standing after, high-fiving and fist bumping a couple of guys. He's just standing there. Nobody's really around him close to where they're trying to talk to him or anything. And you can see him. It looks like he's looking up to the right to the scoreboard and the video screen in the north end zone. And he's kind of just taking in everything.
Right.
And then to see what he did in the locker room afterwards.
Yeah.
Do you want to play that now?
I think we've got it right here.
Okay.
What a cool moment for Mickey Joseph and for the guys. You can tell that's genuine, right? That they're not making, that's not something like the rah-rahs that Mike Riley used to lead, the hip hip hooray stuff. That's legitimate. That is so cool. The Mickey stuff is just spontaneous. It's absolutely spontaneous.
Now, that was at the end of what I thought that cut might be.
Right. You thought it was Trev Alberts presenting him with
the game ball?
With the game ball. And I don't think I have that. I do have Garrett Nelson. I don't even know what he's saying here, but I'll listen.
Obviously, with new faces or just new calls, things like that. But I would give a lot of the praise to him, because obviously he was the same kind of situation with Mickey. Was brought in here for a different spot, got a bigger spot and bigger responsibilities, and flourishing in that role, doing really well, doing a really good job. And But I give it up for my teammates just sticking with us and sticking with each other, and sticking with me as a captain.
So that's Garrett Nelson talking about his defensive coordinator for the most part, Bill Bush. In that instance, I don't think that we have the bite that I was looking for from Trev Alberts, but nonetheless, it was a great moment.
Essentially, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. I don't remember the quote exactly, but he had the game ball and he told the team how proud he was of them to represent the university, themselves, the fan base, the way they've handled the adversity of what's transpired in the last 3 weeks. And he reiterated, he's like, you could tell he was like a proud papa. Yeah. And then he said, but it's not about that right now. It's about one man. Yeah. And he presented the game ball to Mickey Josephs. And then shortly after that is when the Mickey chant started in the locker room.
Well, this has the title of Game Ball. Let's listen to it.
First of all, I want to tell you guys how proud I am of you. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for how hard you've worked. You've gone through a lot, all this adversity. And I can't begin to tell you how proud I am of you. Thank you for representing us so well. But tonight is about another guy. His first win. Yeah.
The first thing that sticks out to me, I mean, it's awesome. It's an awesome moment that Mickey gets the game ball, and the speech is really good from Trev. His days at ESPN really prepared him for this job. Not only, being an All-American and a great, great football player at the University of Nebraska, he's turned into, and I know it's early yet, he's turned into a pretty good athletic director and spokesman for this university. We'll see how it goes. I mean, he's going to have to find a football coach that wins. He's going to continue to have to raise money. That shouldn't be as hard as we think because he has the Big Ten Network behind him. And he just signed, a $270 million deal with Playfly, the media rights deal. So he's bringing in money, and that's, last I checked, make money, hire good coaches. We've yet to see that from Trev Alberts. But maybe Mickey will be his guy, and it won't be a hard hire. He'll just go over to Mickey and say, hey, you want the job.
True. But like I said, that speech and the way because it had nothing to do with him. It had to do with the program, with the fans, and with the team itself. And it just simply, it's the right way to lead. And like I said, that shot of him on the sidelines after he, talked to a couple of players, patted a few guys on the back, him standing there, arms crossed, and just taking the scene in. I wish I could see how fast the wheels were turning in his head, because he knows more, or as much as, not more than anybody. There's so many people that know how passionate this fan base is and how unbelievably fun it is to be a part of this organization and the University of Nebraska football team when they're winning. He's been a part of it. He was unfortunately for him, he didn't get a national championship ring. He was a year or two ahead of that time, but he knows it and understands it so well. And he carries himself so well. He's so eloquent when he speaks. He does his best to never be derogatory towards anyone. And it's just so refreshing. And just like I said, I wish I could see the data being spit out by the wheels turning in his head as he stood there taking that scene in when it was obvious that the game was over.
Well, it was an ugly win, but it was a win. It was the first one in 364 days. And I'll take it because Nebraska didn't know how to win. They're still learning how to win. I'm not, picking them to get into the 4-team playoff by any means, but winning the West and somehow win the Big Ten. They're not going to do that. I mean, although they could, 6-team tie for first place right now in the Big Ten West. So Nebraska's as in it as anybody, and the schedule is somewhat favorable when you compare it to other schools. I'm just saying, I hope Mickey gets a real shot, because I think that he's going to make it hard for him to be getting rid of. Like, if you're going to get rid of me, I'm making it really, really tough on you. I'm going to be the best thing. I mean, if you're going to dump me, you're going to regret it. I think that's what he's saying in his mind, because that guy's a fighter. That guy's a fighter.
And let's be honest, two of the biggest names that Nebraska fans and some pundits have said are right in the mix. They're the top candidate according to so-and-so's source. There's 2 of them yesterday that didn't exactly perform well. There's one of them that I was very disappointed in. Not necessarily the way his team played, but a couple of situations with him and a player on the sideline. I did not care for Matt Campbell and so the issues with his quarterback. I get it. You get a strong-willed quarterback, but just the conversation, it just didn't sit well with me the way that all transpired. And let's face it, Dave Aranda's team looked pretty ordinary for all the run he's got.
Are we going to do that thing, though, where the barometer – we will do that thing.
Yes.
The barometer is up and down based on – it's the stock market, right?
Exactly.
You have a win this week. Oh, you have a loss this week. Oh, Chris Kleinman, good. Oh, Lance Leipold, better. We'll do that whole thing. We'll rank our coaches. But Mickey is definitely on my list. I'll tell you that. And shooting up higher every week. And last night really helped his case for me because he got his team to play and play hard. They threw a shutout in the second half of that game against Indiana, and the special teams showed up. Yeah, there were a lot of penalties. That was ugly. There were a lot of ugly things. But you know what? Football can be ugly sometimes. Sports can be ugly. But it's all beautiful when it ends in a win. We've got BC on the way, one of my favorites, Husker 24/7. Brian Christopherson will talk some Husker football with us. Coming up next, he's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. This is Husker Rewind.
How's Wingstop sound? Crispy, juicy, classic wings. Made to order, cooked to perfection. And sauced and tossed in those 11 soul-satisfying flavors. Paired with hand-cut seasoned fries, house-made honey mustard, blue cheese, or signature Wingstop ranch. And, of course, spicy Cajun fried corn. I think you've heard enough. Get your flavor delivered at Wingstop.com.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Coppel Chevrolet GMC, and things are cooking in Louisville. Right now, our pre-owned sales are off the charts, and we have loaded up the lots full of inventory. We've got a great supply of Sierras, Silverados, Tahoes, Yukons, and crossovers. Plus, we've got a great supply of back-to-school cars just in time for the big day. Don't forget about all of those new 2022 and 2023 units arriving every day as well. So please take that short, money-saving drive down 144th Street or shop online at coppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did.
Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, that frog will boil. As a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans, it's a story that rings true. We learn to endure the heat in silence. We apply what we learn to life, the bills, the job, the family, things we're expected to handle with ease. When life heats up around us, we just try to stay afloat. We let the water boil. Reaching out isn't easy, but you've never been interested in easy. You joined because you were not afraid of hard work. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait until the water boils. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it twice a day.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it in the morning and before dinner.
I get it, slip it, cuff it, check it, and share it with my doctor. Nearly 1 in 2 U.S. adults have high blood pressure. That's why it's important to self-monitor your blood pressure in 4 easy-to-remember steps. It starts with a monitor.
Now that I know my blood pressure numbers, I talked with my doctor. We're getting those numbers down.
Get it, slip it, cuff it, check it. Talk to doctor now and share it.
Be next to talk to your doctor about your blood pressure numbers. Get down with your blood pressure. Self-monitoring is power. Learn more at manageyourbp.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Heart Association, and the American Medical Association, in partnership with the Office of Minority Health and Health Resources and Services Administration.
Now we're in the Senate. Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Just 1-0 this week. You know how it goes. You know, just got to take one at a time. You know, like I said, I'm happy for the kids. I'm happy for the coaches. As a head coach, you sit up here, but you got to give praise to the guys that's underneath you that put the work in. I'm just leading them right now, but I'm happy for them because they put a lot of work in. They work hard. They're doing things extra what I'm asking them to do. So it's not, it's a little different for them, but they're adapting to it and they understand to see what I'm seeing.
Interim head coach, hopefully head coach, Mickey Joseph. If this works out, this Husker experiment, he gets up to 6 wins. Maybe. I'm wondering if 6 would be enough as we bring in BC, Brian Christopherson of Husker 24/7. Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Good. How, after watching last night and kind of seeing where Nebraska was at the end of that Oklahoma game, then getting the bye week and kind of regrouping, what would Mickey Joseph need to do for the rest of the year, you think, to impress his boss enough to get the job?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, it's just sort of blindfold guessing. But I think, they at least got to get to bowl status to have that conversation. And then, some would probably think you might even have to go a notch or two above. The difficulty is, there is a search going on as the season goes on. So, you could think that Trev Alberts, like in late October or something, maybe is really locked in on a guy from the outside with their national search, that it's kind of leading that direction. So because of that, I've said all along, Mickey really needs a good run over these 3 weeks before the next bye. Like, you almost kind of got to run the table, and then that kind of heats up that conversation. Like, if you win at Rutgers and then you won at Purdue, and suddenly it's 4-3 and everybody's really got a hop in their step during the bye. That happens early enough in the search process to, I think, maybe make things more interesting. So I guess my answer is it's got to happen sooner than later. Like, that success has to happen over this period of time, I think, to kind of build that up as a real possibility.
Brian Christopherson joining us from Husker 24/7. Brian, thoughts on the game last night? There were a couple of points where I know I said, here we go again, and we didn't go that way again. What did you see that may have been the root cause of why things changed and Nebraska got off the mat and found a way to win the game?
Well, they plugged the leaks on defense. That's a big part. When you just feel like you don't have a steady footing with your defense, you're never comfortable. And this was the first time all year where there were those 2 really bad series at the end of the first half. And that was where I sort of got that feeling in my stomach, like, okay, this is trouble. This is going to have to be a second half where they match scores. You kind of wondered if it was going to be that game, and it didn't turn into that at all. And as the third quarter went along, I guess what gave me confidence that they could maybe do it this time was I felt like they really had a grip on that side of the ball. I thought, like, the coverage was tight. I thought it was aggressive. I thought they were getting pressure, and they were dictating more than having it being dictated to them what was going on. And that was a complete 180 from what it's been. So, you got to start with that. For a defense that I put some of the numbers on our website. They brought down their average yardage total per game by 45 yards. Like, the average number went down 45 yards because of what they did last night. So that's like how dramatic the difference was in the data from that game compared to the previous 4. The rushing numbers went down by an average of 33 yards per game by their performance last night, where you hold them to 67 rushing yards. So I think the fact that they had a good handle on Indiana's run game, so that was not an angle where the Hoosiers were exploiting them. And then it did come down to that moment where can somebody, just one guy, make that play where everybody on the sideline kind of takes a deep breath, says, okay, we're the team, we're in the driver's seat now. And Trey Palmer made it. And Palmer had a great game, not just a 71-yard catch, the third downs on the last touchdown drive. I just thought Indiana couldn't hang with him, and he has a nice connection with Casey. And in the end, that was as big a difference as anything.
Real quick follow-up. Yeah. When's the last time you saw a Nebraska defense with that many pass breakups? I was astounded. We would go an entire 2 or 3 games in a row without one. Yeah. And last night there was 7 or 8.
That's a good point. Yep. I think they had 8 of them. And, the coverage was there. It was tight. They were challenging, and Malcolm Hartzog played nice, for a guy in his first game. You could tell that he's like, all right, let's do this. I'm going to compete. I'm going to press and challenge these guys. Even the catch they made on him was pretty well covered. Guy made a great catch down the field on it. A couple of the plays Indiana made were their guys just making a skillful play where you kind of tip your hat. So you could tell it was they had simplified things and guys were playing faster. And, when we talk about guys playing fast, we always act like it's foot speed and stuff like that. It's brain speed. It's like, are you picking up like what you're supposed to do? And which spot you're supposed to be in, and you're not overthinking it on the field. And that was what seemed the biggest difference to me with the defense last night, is they weren't overthinking it. They looked like a fast defense because they were just playing ball and, like here's the assignment, go get it, and that really helps things out.
Yeah. BC Husker 24/7, our guest. There was a difference. It was palpable. And you could say Nebraska did play better because they did, but what changed? And I go back to the Purdy sack, where he gives up the sack. He falls in the end zone. He fumbles the football, and Indiana scores, and you're thinking, oh, here we go again. And then they overcome that. They go up 21-7. Then Indiana comes back, and you're thinking, oh, here we go again. Nebraska's going to falter, but they never did. And so that goes to, I think, to some extent, the leadership at the top. How much do you attribute to the change of leadership at head coach?
Well, I think you got to give Mickey a lot of credit. And I think his temperament on the sideline matters too. You feel like he's got a sense about him of evenness, that when something bad happens, it's not like, okay, then this doesn't mean like 5 more bad things are going to happen. He just doesn't have that way about him. And I think there's a confidence that he projects that's good. And obviously, he made a bold move 2 weeks ago to this day, making Bill Bush his interim DC. And, that took a little guts too, to do that mid-season. I mean, you could say they had nowhere to go but up. I understand that, but it's still, that's a big move for a guy who just took that job a week prior to say, okay, I'm completely changing this up, and I'm trusting this guy. I've been around, and I know he can get more out of these guys and bring a spark. And so, that's leadership, that right there, making the hard call, and not making that hard call too late. And, you brought up the Purdy coming in for the series and the sack. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at the time, but I will say this, because I'm going to write about this. I felt like there was an all-encompassing sort of philosophy that guys are not going to have as long a leashes here. And if guys are making mistakes, we're going to look at somebody else. And that played into what they were doing at other positions throughout that game. And I can get behind that. So maybe you can debate whether that was a wise move to bring Purdy in there at the 9-yard line. But they took out Benhart, and then the Hunter Anthony played a lot. Benhart came back for a snap, got a holding penalty. They took him right back out. They made a big move over the off week, putting Hartzog, a first-year freshman, out there on an island instead of Tommy Hill. There's sort of a statement being made, I think, even with at your QB position, that, you're not beyond sitting over here by us, watching it for a bit if you're not getting the job done. So I even that, if people don't like the Purdy decision, I still think there's an overall, theme to that I do like, and I think this team needs right now.
Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7 joining us. Brian, there was a comment, one little snippet out of what we played when we led into the call with you from Mickey Joseph, and they had asked him, what it's like, and he goes, we're 1-0 this week, and he goes, you know how it is. And he told the whole media that, and he's telling Husker Nation. To me, that was an acknowledgement by him that he knows and understands a lot more than maybe people are understanding that he does. Like he's like, look, I get it. So do you. Like, it's simple. You that going back to Major League, it's baseball, not football. You throw the ball, you catch the ball, you run with the ball, you tackle the guy with the ball. It's a simple game. You know how it is. That's what I took from that little, 4 words from him. does that then apply to exactly what you were just talking about? You know how it is. You just didn't get the job done. Why don't you sit here? We're going to let somebody else go do it.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that, and we can put the film on you for, we'll put the film on for a minute and you'll see why we're doing this, and I guys understand usually why a move was made. Not always, but a lot of the times they do. And I think he's pretty to the point about stuff. And, I think he also knows with that 1-0 comment, he wants this team. You've heard him use this phrase probably the last couple of weeks. He says, stop, the next stop sign, basically going stop sign to stop sign. You can't look at this project as, we got to get our arms around an 8-game project here. You look at, let's get our arms around how you beat Indiana. Okay, we did that. Now let's figure out how you do that against Rutgers. And, he also understands, he's been in big time place at LSU. The emotions switch by the week, like by the result. If next Saturday morning we're talking about a 23-17 Rutgers win, a lot of the shine from what happened last night just kind of disappears. And I think he knows that as well as anybody. This game next Friday, guys, it's huge. This is the game to me that will sort of set up. Are we talking about a Nebraska team that's just going to kind of be like that 3-9, 4-8 type team if they lose? Or are we talking about a team that they're coming back 3-3 and people are like, you know what? I'm going to sit up in my chair a little bit.
Yeah.
They could get bowl eligible. They could, who knows with the division if a team kind of comes together. This thing's a little open. This game is that type of swing game, and I think he knows that as well as anybody.
And you look at the schedule, BC, it seems more manageable as you look at the Big Ten. There is 16 team tie for first place in this league, and we thought Wisconsin was good, but apparently they're not good at all. How good is Minnesota after the loss to Purdue? You've got Iowa that is kind of just Iowa every single year. Who is the best team in this division in your mind?
Right now, I would say I would give it to Purdue for the team of the week. But your point is well taken, because a week ago as well, Minnesota's, they're in the left lane and they're flying fast, so that was the thought, and how quickly that changed. So I think Purdue, I've always thought of as a dark horse. I thought they kind of let one slip that first week against Penn State, and we'll see if they really regret that by the end of the year, how the standings shake out. I think when O'Connell's playing, they're a tough out, and they're going to be a really tough game for Nebraska in 2 weeks. So I would maybe say them, but what you're getting at is exactly right. It's not like there's somebody you're just like, oh, it's theirs. That's not how this division is. And I'm not trying to pump this up like I'd put Nebraska like second or third in line at this point. I wouldn't. They beat a team last night that's probably near the bottom of the Big Ten that was without two of its top receivers. You have to recognize some of that. But if it's a team that can get a little confidence and say, we can find ways to win, and they do that again on Friday night, then maybe you're talking a little bit about something. So that's what's going to be at stake this next week, is Nebraska's chance to sort of keep people interested in, the ideas of a bowl game and the ideas of a division chase and all of that. I think sometimes people act like, even last week when the line came out and Nebraska's favored against Indiana, I had people on my Twitter account like, why would Nebraska be favored? I understand Nebraska hasn't played good football, but Nebraska's got good athletes, has recruited well enough. If they can get the pieces in order, they can compete with any of these teams on a given week. You have to always understand that. Like, Illinois looked great yesterday, but do I think Nebraska and Illinois on October 29th might play a game that's decided by 4 points in the last minute? I certainly do. I think Mickey was exactly right when he said that last night's game, that's every game in this league. Get used to it, sort of thing, and we got to find a way to win the fourth quarter.
Brian, one last question for you. Anthony Grant, what does it show about him? Mickey talked about it in the postgame. He wasn't seeing the field very well. He wasn't making the cuts he needed to make. We told him to slow down. He did. He carried the ball over 30 times, 137 yards, whatever it was. But, that's a guy. I know Trey Palmer was player of the game or whatever, but how important was Anthony Grant, especially with that offensive line that, I'll be honest, was below average as always?
Yeah, Anthony's really gifted. To have 400-plus games with a very choppy O-line where the parts are ever changing, it says a lot about him. And I mean, you saw it on the drive. You know, I think early in the game he was running pretty well in the first quarter. And I know what Mickey's saying. Maybe in the second quarter it dipped a little bit. I thought the flags got in the way as much as anything in Nebraska's running game. I thought they had a chance to sort of do what they did late in that fourth quarter with Grant and maybe even Gabe Ervin more earlier, but they kept getting in these weird down and distance situations because of holding flags. And I think some of them were legit. I also think it was a really whistle happy crew that don't find real appealing when they're working games. But I think you saw in that last series, Anthony Grant, there was a play where he had like a 6-yard run where he makes this cut right in the hole where it should have been like a 1-yard gain for a lot of guys. And instead he picked up a first down. He's just that type of guy who he gets 4 or 5 extras quite consistently. And I hope people appreciate what they're watching in him.
BC Husker 24/7. Real quickly, short week this week. You got Rutgers on Friday night. How do you feel about that game?
I like the matchup for Nebraska, especially now that the defense feels like they've found a few ingredients, because Rutgers' offense is really scuffling, and they're kind of figuring out their QB situation. They have injuries there. They're not a good passing offense. I think they will challenge Nebraska's run defense and make them prove they can stop it. And it's just going to have to be one of those games where don't go out there and do what you did in 2020 where you turn it over 4 or 5 times and you're trying to overcome yourself. I think if Nebraska plays a cleaner game, I would favor them, not by much, but I would favor them in this game. And as I said earlier, then I think it gets a little fun. So I hope they do go take care of business, because this is a very much a swing game in how we're viewing the second half of the season.
It feels weird that they don't get a win in 1 year over a FBS team, and they could get 2 in 2 weeks. That would be great. But we'll see. Thanks, BC. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
BC Husker 24/7. Great as always. Let's get the break and come back with more. He is Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. It's Husker Rewind.
There's not many things worse than having plumbing issues at your home or business, but it's even worse if the problem isn't fixed correctly. Select Plumbing gets it right the first time, and they specialize in several things: general plumbing, water heaters, faucet and fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate at 402-560-6197. Plus, they're hiring service plumbers. Contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197.
I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. You get it?
Yes, good job.
So what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container, because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, "My job is people, everyone is my business." But unfortunately, in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Yeah, and early in the game, he wasn't seeing it. So, I was asking after why is he bouncing everything? And he told me why he was bouncing, but he wasn't seeing it. So we told him just slow down a little bit, because we thought Casey thought he was rushing a lot of the runs. Slow down a little bit, see it, let it develop, and then hit it.
There you go. Anthony Grant, or Mickey Joseph, talking about Anthony Grant after the game. I thought he ran so much better. I didn't have a lot of holes against Oklahoma, but A.J. Allen looked much better up until the injury, of course, and you'd love to have A.J. Allen available, but I thought even Gabe Ervin played pretty well. He ran with some hair on fire. Jaquez Giant got the touchdown, and he was fine. He didn't have a lot of opportunities to run the ball, but the workhorse, 33 carries, was Anthony Grant. He was great.
He was. The 1 5-spin run that he did it's one where you see a guy do that where he's in the open field and he does a spin and he does another spin and another spin. I think Divino Zigbo had a run like that, but 3 of the spins he didn't need to do. That was simply a defender making him spin 2 or 3 times and him doing it to avoid. That run by Anthony Grant was insane. And I'll tell you what, Gabe Ervin, I'm going to tip the cap to Gabe Ervin too. He has not played as much as he wanted to this year, and he runs like he's genuinely pissed about that.
But what happened to Ramir Johnson? I mean,
no idea.
There was so much hype about him. No, he's going to be the starter. I mean, we all would have picked him as the starter this year, even with, knowing that Anthony Grant had a really good spring game. And a lot of us would have at least picked him for a lot of playing time, and definitely the third down running back because he's the best pass catcher and really a pretty good pass blocker. But nothing outside of special teams. We've not seen Ramir Johnson at all, which is kind of nutty, I think.
And he wasn't suited up last night. So I don't know. But like I said, I got to tip the cap to Gaber. I like the way he runs, and he does it. He's got great vision. He runs hard, and it's a nice problem to have that especially he's technically the third string guy, but I don't think there's much drop off.
It's nice to have a workworkhorse like Anthony Grant, but they've got some depth at running back. That's for sure. Let's get to the grades. Every week, we go down the list of the position groups. I like to go run game, pass game, defense versus the run, offense or against the pass as well, special teams, and then game management, basically, overall. I'll start with the run game. I gave Nebraska a B. Anthony Grant was great. 32 carries, 33 carries, 136 yards. He was very good. They did take a few sacks, which knocked some yardage off that. Gabe Ervin, I thought, was a good backup and maybe is taking hold of that mantle. I still wonder about Ramir Johnson. And Jaquez Yant ran hard. That 1-yard touchdown run, it was only a yard, but he moved the pile. That's kind of what he does. He's a big guy. In the pass game, what do you have in the run game?
Run game, I had him as a C-. I get it, 137 yards or whatever for Grant, and Ervin ran well. They averaged 2.3 yards per carry. And the yards after contact by both Gabe Ervin and Anthony Grant, they were, I don't know what they were, but it wasn't like there were gigantic holes for them to run through. And until that offensive line figures out how to run block better, and BC had a great point though, but the offensive line's one getting the holding calls. Right. Some of the penalties did not work in Nebraska's favor, down a distance, et cetera. But at the same time, I need to see more consistency before I'm going to give them much more than a D.
I get it. I do think Indiana's got a decent defense. They look good when they beat Illinois, and we're seeing Illinois is a pretty good football team. So I wonder how good Indiana's defense is. On the pass game, I have a C-. Casey Thompson, 18 of 27. He did have a couple of TD passes. 270 yards. He had the 71-yard pass to Trey Palmer, who is the real deal. But Trey Palmer is always open. I mean, he just runs by people. 8 catches, 157 yards. I did think the mistakes, obviously taking the sack in the end zone, the fumble sack. Casey took a couple of sacks that I thought were unnecessary. He threw a bad pick in that game. So I said C-.
I went C+ simply because when it was crunch time, the passing game is what saved Nebraska. There were 3 or 4 third downs on the final drive or the final 2 drives in the fourth quarter that we needed to salt the game away. We needed to run clock. We needed to do something other than allow Indiana to come back and win the game, which is pretty much all we've done for 4 years. And that passing game, and Casey Thompson and Trey Palmer specifically connected on 4 big third downs. They got it done when it mattered. That's why I gave them a little bit higher C+, but everything that you said on the downside of it, exactly why it's only a C+.
Yeah. On the run defense, I gave Nebraska a B-. I know it was 67 yards, but Indiana, maybe that's a little harsh. I'll go B+. But Indiana's not a good running football team, but Nebraska did hold them and made tackles. They tackled, I thought, extremely well in the game, but I did say B+. I'll go as high as a B+.
I actually went B+ as well. I was impressed. I saw guys that I've seen miss tackles for a while, and they made tackles, and the way they attacked the ball carrier was different than what it has been in the past. So I gave them B+.
I went a C- on pass. There were a lot of deflections, I should say, not defections, in the secondary. I thought they did a good job of covering. Basliak was 22 of 44 for 223, 1 TD, 1 pick. Garrett Nelson had a couple of sacks. That definitely hurried some passes. Nebraska had 8 pass breakups, as we said. The pressure was not always great, but it did get home a few times with the 2 sacks. And I thought overall it was okay. I just thought that was the comeback for Indiana. And I thought Nebraska had a chance to put it away when they were up 21-7. And because of the pass defense right before the half, I give them less than a D, but I can't go much better than a C-.
I look at it a little different. I gave them a B. I get it. They had 2 bad drives, but you're playing an offense that's relatively prolific, that threw the ball 66 times last week. And I just, like I said, I just like the difference. I saw guys attack. Pass breakups, that's where I keep going back to in my mind. I remember watching a game earlier this season. Duke was playing. It's Duke, okay? Not the basketball team. It's the Duke football team. And they had like 13 pass breakups. I watched Nebraska later that same day. Nebraska had no pass breakups. No one was even close to the ball. It was the receiver catches it.
They did challenge wide receivers last night.
They did. So
but the 2 best wide receivers. Yeah, I probably am a little harsh, but I tend to be that way. Special teams, Nebraska gets an A in special teams. The block punt for a touchdown, that was the first one since 2009. And they knew they were going to get it. I mean, Mickey did the interview and I think we can get this. And he was kind of a prognostic. He picked that to be the case. And Kolarvik gets the block. And then Hartsaw gets the 30-yard touchdown return. Malcolm Harzak, really good player, and he's only a freshman, so he gets playing time last night. I thought he played well all around. Again, Trey Palmer was very good in the return game in a 22-yarder. They had 78 yards overall for the night. The punting was not great, but Bushimi does kick it high. He had 8 punts for 39 yards. So it's hard to return punts against him. So I said, there weren't a lot of bad things that happened special teams wise. I gave him an A.
I did too. The only downside at all was Brian Bushini's last 2 punts. They were 31 and 26 yards, and they were when we were near midfield. We had a chance to flip the field, and he kind of shanked both of them. The one he didn't shank, but it was a little bit too high, and I know it got caught up in the wind. But then that backspin on the gap wedge, it goes 15 yards the wrong way. That's a bad break a little bit, but at the same time, those are the big pressure punts. Those are the ones that we need him to not do that. We need him to hit a 47-yarder or a 41-yarder with no return. And but still, overall special teams, A. Would you have ever dreamed of saying that?
No, I wouldn't have. Punt block, a novel idea. If you want to take a chance, no onside kick, block a punt. I prefer that because the penalty for not executing is much less than giving up that kind of field position. 12 penalties, Big Ten record. They did tie a Big Ten record for penalties last night, 111 yards. So it wasn't a good night penalty-wise, so management probably not very good there. The Turner Corcoran thing, I don't know that I really blame him especially for the first the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. And then he gets the second one. I thought it was just cheap to kick him out of the game for that. But there were a lot of penalties. And for that, Nebraska gets a D as far as management is concerned.
Absolutely. 12 penalties, inexcusable. The substitutions at times I didn't get. Some of the play calls I didn't get. Situation didn't warrant for a pass on a 2nd and 7 when you've got a drive going and it turns into an intentional
35-yard line. Run the ball.
There was a couple things. Yeah, overall, still, I thought the game management. I mean, hey, they won the game. Who cares? This is us nitpicking, I think, by giving them a D.
Sure. Yeah. But overall, I mean, it was a good night. We all smiled at the end of it.
Here's my grade overall for the team. I give them a W.
Give them a W. That would be for win, I believe. We have more show to do. We've got a full hour left in the show. I do want to do our coaches of the week. We have a barometer. We rank our coaches. We have a Big Ten Blitz on the way. I don't even know if we'll be able to get everything in, but we'll try because I want to play more stuff from the press conference from Mickey Joseph as well. Hopefully he'll be the head coach at the University of Nebraska when this is all said and done. But back more. It's Husker Rewind with Tom and Mike.
Tractor Supply is looking for full-time team members for their Waverly Distribution Center. Applicants can expect a 3- and 4-day workweek schedule with additional overtime days, with both day and night shift schedules available. Stand-up forklift and high-reach forklift experience is a plus for open positions, but they're willing to train for those without experience. At Tractor Supply, they work hard, have fun, and make money. Apply today at tractorsupply.jobs.
Parent-teacher conferences are a key ingredient in your child's academic achievement. I'm Jenny Benson, a teacher and president of the Nebraska State Education Association. Head into your parent-teacher conference with notes and questions. Share details with the teacher about your child and life at home. Ask about your child's strengths and weaknesses and how you can be supportive. Help us make this your child's best school year yet.
Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People City Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
As an 18-year-old, I let my mistakes kind of take over my life. I was 0.5 credits away from completing high school, and I didn't do it.
10 years later, at age 28, Jackie finished her high school diploma.
When I found out that I was pregnant, I know that I had to do something for myself if I wanted to make her a better person and provide a better life for her. My family never stopped pushing for me to be better because they knew what I could become and who I could become as a person. My support team is amazing. The educational director, my sister, and even my 7-year-old daughter has just been more than the support that I could ask for. I've been given an opportunity, and I'm just thankful for it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
More of the Sunday Rewind is coming your way next.
60% of the time, it works every time.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Well, I think right now, just their mental right now is like, we can win the fourth quarter. We can win close games because they've been so close. They've been so close, and they finally got to a Big Ten game and got to the fourth quarter, and they finished in the fourth quarter.
Nebraska certainly did. They handed to Indiana really handily. For a Nebraska game, that was pretty much well in hand, at least by late in the fourth quarter. Nebraska wins 35-21, and it proves to 2-3 in a 6-team tie for first place in the Big Ten. I don't know any of us thought we would be saying that. Now, the Big Ten West is not good. I wouldn't say it's not good. I would say there's not a great team in the Big Ten West. There's actually a lot of pretty solid teams within the West. I just don't know that there's a great team. And at the start of the year, I would have told you that team was probably Wisconsin, and they are definitely not it.
No, they're not. Real quick, I want to throw a volleyball update out. Nebraska lost the third set, 25-21. They are in the fourth set. Last update that I had was 7-3. That was, though, probably like 7 or 8 minutes ago. So trying to get updates on that. But Husker Volleyball in the fourth set out in Piscataway.
By the way, we'll have Tanya Taki on within the next 20 minutes or so to talk some Husker Volleyball from Friday night. I know it's Rutgers and Maryland weekend. But this is when you really, I think, have a chance to play some more girls, build some depth, and get some confidence. Because, let's face it, these matches get over relatively quickly. Let's get into the Big Ten Blitz.
The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz. The Big Ten Blitz.
Okay, we're going to go down the league, talk about every team in the league, and then we'll rank our teams. I'll start with Michigan over Iowa, 27-14. Michigan rushes for 172 yards. Iowa's quarterback, Spencer Petras, took it on the nose, 21 of 31, 246, and one TD. He was sacked 4 times by Michigan. Iowa ran for just 35 yards in that game. Of course, they never do anything offensively, and they certainly didn't do anything against Michigan.
No, Ohio State 49-10 winners over Rutgers. Starting in place of Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams runs for 189 and 5 touchdowns as the Buckeyes roll rather expectedly.
Purdue now 3-2. They beat Minnesota. We thought that was the best team in the Big Ten West. Maybe not. They're now 4-1 after a 20-10 loss. Tanner Morgan was not good in this game, although he had some bad luck. 18 of 33, 257, 0 TDs, 3 picks in that game. That kept Purdue around, and it was enough to win as Minnesota only rushed without Mo Ibrahim. He did not play in that game, only 47 yards rushing.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Brett Bielema brought his rebuilding project that is the Fighting Illini to Camp Randall Stadium in Madison to take on his former team and walked away with a dominating 34-10 win over Wisconsin. I can't believe what I just said. The game featured a whopping 512 yards of total offense between the two teams. However, Chase Brown ran for 129 yards and Tommy DeVito had 3 short touchdown runs.
Any relation
for the
to Danny
Illini.
DeVito?
I don't think so.
Wisconsin has now lost 11 of their last 24 Big Ten games. Is Paul Chryst on the hot seat, you think? Something to
Good
think
question.
about. Penn State over Northwestern. Penn State moves to 5-0. Northwestern now 1-4. Their only win in their last 11 games, Northwestern, has been against Nebraska. It was an ugly game. 8 total turnovers combined by those two teams. In fact, Penn State's the first team in 12 years in the Big Ten to win with 5 turnovers. Fortunately, they were playing Northwestern.
Yes, crazy game there. Maryland might be for real. The Terrapins are now 4-1 after a 27-13 win over previously, many weeks ago, 11th ranked Michigan State. Sparty has now lost 3 in a row. They look totally lost. They look like a team that, I'll be honest with you, they look a little bit like a team that got upset by Georgia Southern that just quit. The difference is Nebraska had a bye week and they didn't quit. They got a win today. But Michigan State is wandering aimlessly right now. Talia Tagovailoa threw for 314 yards, 1 touchdown. Michigan State special teams look a lot like Nebraska's over the last 4 years. They missed a field goal, had 1 blocked, and then botched an extra point because of a bad snap. Mel Tucker is not a fan favorite in East Lansing today.
Well, good thing they didn't pay him like $100 million. Oh, wait,
it was only $95 million.
That's right. But who knows?
Yikes.
Maybe they could turn it around. But it's not going well for a 2-3 Spartan team. Maryland, on the other hand, now 4-1. So this is the time we rank our teams from 14 to 1. Last week at the 14th spot, it was Nebraska. They moved up the charts, at least in my mind, after that win over Indiana, 35-21. And now Indiana is the worst team in the Big Ten. Next week, they have Michigan. Who do you have at 14?
I have Northwestern at 14. They drop 1 spot. They're 1-4, 1-1 in the Big Ten. And like you said, they've lost 10 of their last 11. Pat Fitzgerald, I get it. But I think it might be time. I think it might be time for a change.
Because they always had that trend where they would win 1 year, win 10 games 1 year,
and then go 3-9,
and then go 3-9. But they'd always bounce back again. They're not bouncing back,
and they got $1 billion stadium that's going to be there in 2 years.
Yeah, you got to pay for that. I would think that Big Ten contract will help. I have Nebraska still at 13, even though they are 3-2, and they do knock off. I thought the worst 3-1 team in the country in Indiana, but it's still a win. Indiana didn't have their 2 best receivers. I have Nebraska at 13, Northwestern a little higher because they did beat Nebraska, but we'll find out more about Nebraska when they play Rutgers this Friday night. Who do you have at 13? You have
13.
Northwestern. No.
I had Northwestern was 14th. 13th, I have Michigan State.
Okay.
I think Michigan State is in worse shape than Nebraska is right now. They're 2-3. They've lost 3 in a row. They're 0-2 in the conference. And like I said, they look like a team that borderline has kind of given up because things
Really
are
weird.
not going their way.
Yeah, really, really weird. I understand they don't have the same running back this year, but I thought they would be much better under Mel Tucker. They went 11-2 last year, but they're just a disaster right now at 2-3. Northwestern, I have currently at number 12. They're 1-4. They've lost 10 of their last 11 games, as we just said. But I have Northwestern there, but they did beat Nebraska, so I have them one higher than the Huskers.
I have Indiana at 12, same as last week, 3-2, 1-1 in the conference. I get it. 2 of those 3 wins that they have probably should not have been, but Northwestern looks just horrible. And Michigan State, to me, looks so lost. And that means, I have Nebraska higher than 12th even.
At number 11, I have Wisconsin. They fall again to Illinois. Illinois did a Wisconsin on Wisconsin. But Wisconsin has now lost 11 of their last 22 Big Ten games. I think Paul Chryst is definitely on the hot seat. So I have them at number 11.
I think he is as well. I have Nebraska at number 11. I get it. It's one win. I get it. It's over Indiana, missing their 2 top receivers. But there's a different team in Lincoln today. They all woke up, and they woke up happy for the first time in a long time. And the belief that I think they have from figuring out a way to win that game, I'm for today, I'm going to move them up to number 11 because I think it could be the start of a little bit of a run. Whether it plays out that way or not, we'll find out starting Friday.
Well, and Friday they play Rutgers, who I have at number 10. They are 3-2. They will host Nebraska. Short week for both teams. Which team adjusts to the short week the best, I think? I think Nebraska has more talent than Rutgers. That'll be fun. But Rutgers, they tend to win. And that's why I guess I have them at 10th.
I have Wisconsin at 10, dropping 1 spot. I don't know. I agree. Paul Chryst, there's got to be some rumblings up there in Madison that maybe
Mike Riley disciple.
Yeah.
Remember that the Mike Riley used to say that he and Paul Chryst would go watch Norv Turner videos at the place that he had in San Antonio. That's what they did for fun. They're both football nerds. They're just not very good at it for some reason.
True.
At number 9, I've got Michigan State at 2-3. They've got Ohio State next week, so it's not going to get any better for Michigan State, although they host them, so you never know. But I know Michigan State's a bad football team, but I have them higher than you. I have them at number 9.
I actually have Rutgers at number 9. They drop 1 spot for me. The drubbing to Ohio State, very much expected. They're still 3-2, 0-2 in the conference, but we'll see what happens on Friday.
At number 8, I've got Iowa. They were thumped pretty hard by a good Michigan team who ran all over them. But I've got them. That's still, they're at Illinois. So we'll find out this week how good Iowa and Illinois are. But Iowa just looks like Iowa. They're going to win 8 games again this year, and they're right in the middle of the pack.
I have Iowa at number 8 as well. Here's my question. With the Iowa-Illinois game and the way both teams play and the way both teams love to possess the ball, is there any way both teams wind up with 40 minutes of time of possession? Because I think it could happen. Yeah. That's going to be a really interesting game. Colossally boring, more than likely, but a really interesting game.
Extremely. Tommy DeVito, 3 rushing touchdowns. They were all from like the 1-yard line.
Yeah. Yep.
It was a good Illinois type, Brett Bielema type game.
There you go.
It was a good Brett Bielema type game. Number 6, I've got Minnesota now 4-1. Boy, they laid an egg yesterday in their loss to Purdue. They have a bye week coming. And PJ Fleck, sometimes you write him off after losses like that. Oh, yeah, here's the salesman. Here's the sloganeer. Now, but know what? Watch. They'll bounce back. They always bounce back.
Who'd you have at 7?
I had Illinois at 7.
Okay.
Oh, did I mention Illinois? I had mentioned Illinois at 7. Did I move on from Illinois too quickly?
It's okay.
Oh,
so 7 I had Purdue, 6 I've got Minnesota. I got just kind of have them flipped. I still all the proof from Minnesota prior to this last weekend tells me they're a better team than what they showed Saturday, but I don't know.
Minnesota, as I mentioned, I do have at number 6. They are coming into a bye week. So that's where I have Minnesota right now.
Who do you have at 5?
At 5, I've got Maryland, 4-1. They played pretty good football yesterday against Michigan State. They're a physical. It would almost what you expect from Michigan State. You're getting from Maryland right now.
You wouldn't expect at all.
But they've also got a really good quarterback in Talia Tagovailoa.
That they do. I've got Illinois at 5. 4-1, and Bielema seems to be figuring it out. He's got a recipe that works. He learned it from Barry Alvarez, And I'm kind of a believer that's going to be a really interesting game when Nebraska and Illinois square off here.
I've got at number 4, I've got Purdue at 3-2. That was a nice win over Minnesota, but let's be honest, Minnesota kind of handed them that game. 3 turnovers, 1 in the red zone that should have been a touchdown. But Purdue, they've got a pretty good defense. They weren't good offensively, but they had enough of a running game. Now they are at number 4 for me. It's weird because you 4 through 8. We say this every week. Just put them all into a pot, and you don't know what you're going to get.
I put Maryland at number 4 because I'm like, you know what? They're proving to me that they're a team that probably everyone needs to pay attention to.
At number 3, I've got Penn State. They are 5-0. They are the first team, as we mentioned, in Big Ten over the last 10 years, in the Big Ten, 12 years actually, that had 5 turnovers and still won a game. As we mentioned also, it's a good thing they were playing Northwestern, but I do have them at 3.
I have them at 3. The 4 fumbles, they were playing in the rain and the slop from the leftover from the hurricane, but it was it's still, bottom line is they have a 64-year-old quarterback, and he knows how to win games.
Yeah, Sean Clifford's still there running that show. I think he has been for the last 30 years. Michigan now 5-0. They're at Indiana this week, so they've got another bye week coming. But Michigan is definitely, I think we all both agree, but on 1 and 2, but Michigan's number 2 for me.
Same with me. The interesting thing that came out of that Michigan-Iowa game more than anything, and I don't know why I found it interesting. Iowa, just like the bully that likes to call you names, and they think that it's going to affect you somehow or whatever. Iowa paints the visitors' locker room pink.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of childish and immature, but whatever. Yeah, it's Kirk Ferentz. What do you expect?
Yeah.
But Michigan came out and started waving pink towels on the sideline.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of one of those where I can't repeat on the air what that was to Kirk Ferentz in Iowa, but I kind of liked it. And it was very Harbaugh-esque.
Yeah, it was very Harbaugh.
And Michigan, I think, is going to be better this year than what I initially thought. I thought they would fall off a bit. I'm not sure that's going to be the case.
J.J. McCarthy, their new quarterback, he was a former 5-star. He's starting to play better week by week. Ohio State at number 1 for me. Micaiah Williams had a big day, 5 TDs, 189 yards, tied a school record that's been around forever. They can do it to you many ways. Yesterday it was on the ground for Ohio State. They only threw for 150 yards, something like that, 160 yards. Stroud did not have a big day, but they found that they could run the football. Now they can beat you in a bunch of different ways because Ohio State last year didn't do that. It was exclusively through the air. But they are at Michigan State next week, Ohio State.
And Ohio State's my number 1. And the thing that is scary for the Big Ten, and I think that people in the national scene and on the national side of things need to start paying attention to, Ohio State wasn't necessarily soft, but they were a pretty team. So if they got a little dirt on their uniforms, they were okay with it, but they didn't really want to get overly dirty. And what they are a far more physical football team than I remember for a long time.
Yeah. And Ryan Day, I was wondering if that physicality would come out of his teams. You saw it consistently with Urban Meyer. They were always a physical football team. And last year's team, once they got into the 14 playoff, they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't run the ball.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to do that. This year's team looks a lot more versatile than some Ohio State teams. If you want to go through the air and win, they can do that. You want to run it, play Wisconsin type football, they can do that as well. It seems like they've got a number of different ways to beat you, but that's Ohio State.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing. Like I said, for the Big Ten and nationally, you've got a team that has upped the physicality. They have the same amount of talent that Clemson does, that Georgia does, that Alabama does. And I think it's going to be those 4 in the playoff again. But the thing that's coming across a little bit differently for me from Ohio State is just that brute physicality. Can that defensive line, though, stop the run in big games when it counts? That's going to be the key.
So there you go. Our Big Ten blitz, we agree on a lot of them, but in the middle, you're just it doesn't really matter because I can see this changing.
Oh yeah,
this more than any recent year. As we mentioned, there's a 6-way tie for first place in the West. So pick any team to win the West, and you might be right this year, including Nebraska. They've still got a chance. It's not over. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Sorry.
John Belushi said no.
Animal House. Reference there. Let's get to Mickey Joseph. Back to some things he said following Nebraska's 35-21 win last night at Memorial Stadium over Indiana. This is him talking about the penalties.
I got to do the better job with this team. And we have officials at practice Tuesdays and Wednesdays, so I'm probably going to have the officials at practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I got to do a better job. I got to do a better job of getting them to play under control. And I told them, I said, that the non-moving penalties irritates me. And a couple of, pass interference calls, I thought one of the balls was, wasn't catchable, but they had them locked up. They had them covered. You just had to move your feet. But, it's things that we can clean up, and we'll go back and look at it and get better. But if you're going to be an aggressive football team, you're going to have some of those penalties if you're going to be aggressive. But, we're going to go back and look at it because we don't condone that, and we'll get better.
That statement right there is a statement from a head coach who knows exactly, I think, what he's doing. He knows how to have his players' backs. And it was whether it's coach speak, whether it's him saying what he thinks needs to be said, I don't care. He said it. I want to go back 3 years to a very similar game early in the season. Nebraska's been racking up penalty yards, and they came into a game 12, 13, 14 penalties. And Scott Frost's comment in the post game was, I told the team, you're the worst, least disciplined team in America. I told them they have to be better.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Mickey Joseph just said, I have to be better.
It's on me. It's on me.
That's leadership.
Because quite honestly, it is. You're the leader. You're the head coach. It doesn't matter. Anything that happens, it doesn't matter if you did it or not. If it happens under your watch, you're responsible. And you did feel that from time to time, that there was some blame shifting going on. And I haven't heard that one time from Mickey Joseph. He's like, this is always on me. And he knows it's not on him. He did the same thing after the Oklahoma game. It's spread around, but publicly, that's the message that he wants to send. I think he's a very message-driven guy. You had the thing from O'Shawn a few weeks ago saying, the culture may not, this. I don't want guys saying that. And we'll tell them what to say. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That you want to be having the same message over and over. And I think Mickey's done a good job of delivering a consistent message to the fans and to his team.
I completely agree. Leadership 101. When things go well, praise the people that helped you make things go well. Even if it was 100% your responsibility, if you have a team, a group of people that helped you be successful, you give the credit to them. When things go sideways, leadership 101, you take the blame, regardless of whether or not no one listened to you and didn't do what you said.
Right.
That's the way you lead. That's the way you keep teams, whether it's on a football field, a sheet of ice, a baseball field, on a pitch, on a volleyball court. Makes no difference. It's also the same in a conference room. If you're the leader of a team, that's how you lead. That's all Mickey Joseph does.
It's nice to have a special teams that are special. And they had that last night. This is Mickey talking about it.
That was big. We talked about that all week, and it was executed, to the best we can execute it. Joey did a really good job of getting these kids ready. But we said we had a punt that we needed to block, and somebody had to make a play. And I thought, like you said, I thought they special teams played solid tonight.
They predicted they were going to block a punt. It reminds me a little bit of what good coaches sometimes. You heard that story from last year from Iowa after the game. Like they knew they could take advantage of a blocking scheme that Nebraska was running. And that totally turned the tide of that Iowa game last year. Nebraska, I think I saw the ESPN thing, 97% chance of winning. Block punt? 0. It kind of happened like that. And you felt that last night. Like, oh, yeah, good special teams really can change the momentum of a game. They can actually change a game.
Yeah.
You should try doing that, blocking punts occasionally. And they saw it. It's good that, they thought they could take advantage of a blocking scheme, and they did.
And you didn't get to hear it because you were at the game, but watching, they mentioned in the pregame and early in the first quarter that they had been talking to Coach Joseph earlier that morning, and he had mentioned that he feels like there's going to be a big play in the kicking game. He essentially told the TV guys that we're going to do something special. You're going to see something special in the kicking game. He called his shot.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where I guess, and he immediately, what did he do? He goes, Joey did a great job. He identified where we could exploit him.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't it was, we had success because of that guy.
Yeah. And they did a lot of good things. And the punting was, as you mentioned, a trouble spot the final 3 punts. But I like Bushimi getting height on his kicks. They never seem to be returned. And on the other side, Trey Palmer is just scary. I don't want to be coming at that guy. Johnny Rogers had those types of moves. I haven't seen him since, or that kind of speed in a Nebraska uniform at punt returner. Maybe Kenny Bell had the straight ahead speed, but it's been a while since you've seen the electricity that Palmer provides anytime he touches the football. It doesn't matter if he's receiving or catching a punt.
He's not quite to Santino Panico's level, I don't think.
Thank goodness.
Thank
goodness.
Trey Palmer, it was obvious Nebraska had not set up a return, but it seemed as though Indiana outkicked the coverage on his 3rd return of a punt in the game. It seemed like there were 5 Indiana guys that were all free. And he caught the ball. He had, 3 to 4 yards. And he just stopped and stood there. And he's like, what are you going to do? Okay, you make the first. Okay, made you miss. Then ran out of an arm tackle, spun around. I mean, he got a 7 to 8 yard return from what ultimately, with 5 guys coming at you, most people would have just fair caught. Instead, he makes a couple of people look silly. And it's that hesitation that he has and the confidence he has in his own first step and the quickness to get from 0 to 60 as quick as he does. It's very well-deserved confidence because it's insane watching him. It's so fun.
He's a really good football player, to say the least. This is Mickey Joseph talking about the more physical team being the one that's going to win the game.
I thought they put their face in the fan. I didn't see anybody shy away. We still had some missed tackles, but I thought for the most part, they got them down and they were physical. We said at the beginning of the game, whoever's the most physical team's going to win the game.
The way he says it is pretty cool. He's got that cool, smooth voice, and he says physical, and you kind of believe it. It's been a while since Nebraska's had a physical identity. It certainly happened through most of the Bo Pelini era, but it certainly didn't under Mike Riley. It didn't under Scott Frost. I think we've been begging for a little more physicality. They're not there, but you saw more of it certainly last night.
Well, and it speaks to both sides of the football. Like I've said, I still think the offensive line needs to improve. It needs to become more physical, sustain blocks for longer. Flip side, the defense has got to get off blocks faster. They've got to hit people and wrap up and make tackles. The live tackling that is now taking place in practice, it was noticeably different. And it's literally been, there, even though Nebraska had certain games last year where they were really, really good defensively, the one little caveat was always, they had 14 missed tackles. Can you imagine how good they would have been had they not had those missed tackles? And that's the thing. When you practice physical, you play physical.
Well, Mickey had that quote. You talk about some of the Mickey quotes. I mean, he talked about it's hard to get good at tackling if you don't tackle, sending the message that we're going to tackle. And I think it's evident that they've been working on it. If they're not, I'd be stunned because they tackled so much better last night. In case you missed it, this was how Mickey received the game ball. There's Trev Alberts with the game ball, and then the chant begins right about here. Pretty cool stuff. Very happy for Mickey Joseph. And let's face it, if he's not Nebraska's next head football coach, he certainly won't be unemployed. The guy is a really good football coach, and he'll be coaching somewhere, if not Nebraska.
Any more you want to get to? Otherwise, I'm going to give you an update on volleyball, and we can jump to Tanya.
I would like that.
Final from Maryland. Nebraska wins the 4th set, 25-22. So they take it 3-1, 25-18, 25-23, 21-25, 25-22. And they improved to 12-1, 4-0 in the conference. And we will chat with former Nebraska middle blocker Tanya Taki when we come back. It's the Husker Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket.
Working at Continental in Lincoln isn't a job, it's a career. And right now they've raised wages again and they're hiring for production operators at $22.58 per hour. And other select jobs is starting at $24.28 per hour, with wages growing up to $30.30 per hour. Continental also has salary jobs available and great benefits, plus medical and prescription costs at very low premiums. Dental, vision, and life insurance are offered at no premium cost to the associates. To learn more or to apply, go to continental-jobs.com with keyword Lincoln. Come work at Continental today.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? Or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity, not to make friends, but just to get something to eat? Or a retiree who fell ill and had to choose
between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike.
That's old school.
Yeah?
No school like the old school.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Nebraska basketball put on a show with Waka Flocka the other night. That was kind of fun to see both the men and the women play. The women opened up with an exhibition against some really pretty good basketball players, guy basketball players, and they beat them. They beat them rather handily, 40-22. So that was kind of fun to watch. And then you had the Nebraska men do more of a drill thing at PBA's the other night, but just that was the official first practice for Nebraska basketball. We'll get into that, what I saw a little bit later on. But Nebraska volleyball, number 3 in the land, coming off a sweep of the weekend. They swept Rutgers on Friday night and then Maryland today in straight sets.
Nope.
Oh, no?
3-1. They lost the third.
Oh, they lost one. Oh, well, then close down the program. I take everything good that I just said about them if they lost a set today. No, obviously, they're still young and growing. And to talk a little bit here about Husker volleyball, Tanya Taki. Hi, Tanya. Are you there?
Hello. I am there.
Good. What'd you gather from today's 4-set win for Husker volleyball?
Well, I was able to listen to the game. We have our fall ball, and luckily my team played early enough that I was able to listen to most of it. I think we finally found a ref that thinks the same thing as I do as far as the setting goes. I know that might not be the popular thought, but if she's not getting called on those bad sets, she's not going to fix anything, and it's time to start fixing something. So the ref called her on 9 double calls, and that's the way the season's been. The refs just haven't been strong enough to make the call.
Right. And you're talking Kennedy Orr then?
Yes, but that's just in general. I was just saying in the setting, in general, the ref finally was like, nope, you got to set better than that.
Do you think Nebraska does the 6-2, the 2-setter thing because they feel like they maybe don't have one setter, or you just feel like you have a lot of really good hitters you're trying to get more hitters on the floor? But would you like to see Nebraska go back to the 5-1?
Well, I'm probably in the 5-1 camp because I know that there's 2 very distinctive camps. However, I'm really loving Maggie Mendelson on the right side. And then who do you take out? You have Lowenstein on the right side. You have Krause on the left side and Kubik on the left side. You have 4 great blockers, great hitters. And so I like having a 6-2 right now because I really think our 4, you call them outside or pin hitters. You have 4 pin hitters on a 6-2 and 2 middles. And speaking of middles, they had a really great game today. Lauren Cook on the call was like, please set the middle, just keep setting middle. So they had a really great game today, and that was fun to see. And just having Becca Alec and Maggie Mendelson together, they are a great combination on the block, and how do you take one of them out to run a 5-1?
That's a great question. Yeah. You mentioned the fact that they wind up getting the win. It was one of those games that I thought could have been a little bit of a trap. They started slow. They're down 7-2 in the first set. And then Whitney Launstein, who is known as being one of the best pin hitters, gets on, I believe, a 8-point service run. Served ultimately 9 times. We went on an 8-point run with the side out, a 9-point run to take the lead and pull away and win the first set. Did you see her serving ability early on last year or at any time up until just recently? And what is she doing that is so good on those serves?
Well, let's talk about serving in general. I mean, serving has been one of those like Achilles heels for the Huskers in the last up until this point. And I believe they had 12 aces yesterday and 8 aces today and maybe only 2 errors. I couldn't follow all the stats, but when we're serving that well, that's going to make a much better difference. And we also have such a great block. So if we can serve tough and block great, like that's going to play really well into our game. As far as Whitney Launstein, I honestly think she's just a gamer and she wants to score points and she wants to be aggressive. And I think the girl has to be overly frustrated with getting sets that are all over the place, and then she gets to go back into the serving line and she gets to be boss. Like, I'm putting the ball where I want to put it and I'm ripping it. And I think that's just her like mindset, and that's just my opinion only. Yeah. Watching what she's capable of doing and then the sets that she's getting is just, it's really hard as a fan to watch. I've said that before on the show that it's really hard to watch, but I feel like, you know, it's early enough in the season. Coach Cook and his staff has always done a good job of by December, we're playing our best volleyball. And I'm just hoping that this ref calls can say, hey guys, that we got to take the ball in a different position.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Nicklin Hames is going to be healthy at some point, you would think, as well. So that will help them in the setting department. Talking with Tanya Taki, one of the great middle blockers in Nebraska volleyball history, and coach at Nebraska 1 as well. Looking at the schedule, you got Michigan State Thursday, Saturday, Michigan, then Penn State on Friday, October 14th. What are you hoping to learn about this team in these next 3 matches?
I mean, I think we learned that they can serve in bounds this weekend. So, I mean, I think I read an article about Coach Cook talking about landing a helicopter on the other side of the net, like find a spot to serve in bounds over there. So I think that was so refreshing to see. So I think like right now what the Huskers do exceptionally, if we can serve, is block and play defense. I'm just ready. I'm so ready for them to start clicking on offense. Every time somebody had a great swing, the words that came out of Lauren Cook's mouth was finally we made a connection with Kubik. Finally, we made a connection with Launstein. Like, yes, finally we connected with Horde. Like, yes, that's like, we're all so ready for that. And so I think that's just going to be something that this team is going to just develop. And if it takes until December, I'll be frustrated all September, no problem. Actually, it's October now.
Exactly.
We're in October. I'll be frustrated all October. You just put it together in December. I'm good with that.
We're never frustrated hearing you on the air. You got one more question?
Yeah, never frustrated at all. One,
I mean, I know we're number 3 in the country, and here I am frustrated. I don't need it. We just have such high expectations of ourselves, I guess.
But there's nothing wrong with that either. When you've got a team, the one thing I want to ask you about is the way that Coach Cook addresses these. Let's face it, when you've got a team like he does, that, and it's not just this year, it's for a very long stretch of years. At times, you have to get nitpicky to find something to coach them on, so that they don't get complacent, so that they continue to work hard, etc. And with setting being such an issue, how would you approach it, knowing what you know about the game and knowing what you know about Coach Cook? How would you approach trying to improve the setting?
I mean, I want to say that it's not physical anymore. It's going to be more mental, and just how we, like, I don't want to say like mentally pump up our setters and just make them feel. I mean, it has to be a really weird dynamic of having Orr come in thinking that she's going to be the 5-1 setter. She's putting up this great block in red-white game. We're going to go with Orr. We're going to go with Orr. We're going to go with Orr. And then never mind, we're going to do Nicklin and Ani. Oh, wait, now Nicklin's hurt. Now it has to be Orr and Ani. It's just, that has to be a difficult waking up in the morning to have that motivation to get better. What is she getting better for? If Nicklon's going to come back and come in and set. So I think that it's got to be mental and just building up our setters and giving them confidence. And you're running the show right now. You have the keys. Let's put some gas in the tank and put on all cylinders. We just haven't seen that running on all cylinders from the hitting, zones, if you want to call it, this season yet.
One of the great middle blockers in Nebraska volleyball history, Tanya Taki, joins us every week and we'll be back. But Nebraska One, what's new at Nebraska One these days?
So we actually have tryouts for our spring teams next week. Not next week, but the week after that, October 10th and 12th. So if you have a fourth grader through in high school, you want to check out our website. We have all of our tryouts posted. Our high school tryouts are actually a little bit later due to NSAA rules. So we have all of our tryouts posted on NebraskaOne.com.
Great. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, Tanya.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. Tanya Taki, Nebraska winning in 4 sets over Maryland today. So they win win in 3 on Friday night and then in 4 today. Maybe a little sloppy was what I got from Tanya, but the firepower is immense with this team. And when they put it all together, and I'm a believer that they will. And the big concern right now with Tanya is setting. But once they figure that out, this team could be, well, they're already number 3 in the country, but they could be really dangerous. They could be an offensive dynamo. And I think they will turn into that ultimately. I do want to talk a little bit more about Adrian Martinez, one of my favorite subjects in the world, because it is fascinating to me that a guy like that, and maybe it won't continue, but Adrian Martinez ran for 171 yards and 3 scores last night in Kansas State's 37-28 win over Texas Tech. That's a good win. Texas Tech had beaten Texas the week before, and the week before, Adrian Martinez and Kansas State beat Oklahoma. Now that's looking less impressive because Oklahoma's just looking bad. But in the last 2 weeks, Adrian Martinez has 9 touchdowns total. And it makes me think, was it more to you about the coaching he received at Nebraska, or that he's just surrounded by better talent now at Kansas State, and that's what he's benefiting from?
Of the 9 touchdowns, 2 of them are through the air. He's a quarterback last time I checked. So I all props to Adrian. I think it was coaching. I think he has some talent. He's not a great quarterback. He still misses wide open receivers. But bottom line is he's winning. And, for so long, he wasn't, and Nebraska wasn't. Now, at Nebraska, things have changed a little bit. We got to win. Don't care against who it was. It was an FBS opponent, Big Ten opponent. They figured out a way. And, I think it's 100% that he's getting better coaching at K-State than he did here. And I think the mindset.
That's a pretty good offensive line. And then they have Deuce Vaughn as well.
Yeah.
So it's not Adrian alone, obviously. I'm not saying that it is. Deuce Vaughn's an All-American. I mean, he's really, really good. But their offensive line is clearly better than what he had at Nebraska. And my biggest problem was always Adrian gets all the blame and just sometimes the credit, but there wasn't much credit because Nebraska wasn't winning. But it was never seemed, and I understand it's the quarterback position. They get more blame. It just goes with the territory. But it makes me realize when a guy comes here and it doesn't succeed, it's not like a lot of guys have left here and succeeded elsewhere. Luke McCaffrey, didn't work out for him, certainly at quarterback. But I always thought Adrian was a pretty good quarterback, and I think he's proving that he's a pretty good quarterback. I don't think he was a Heisman candidate ever, even though he was on the, in the running for it, supposedly. I'm happy for him because I always thought he was capable of being in first place at Kansas State in this league, because I didn't think the league was very good, and I think Kansas State's pretty well coached. They're in first place right now.
Yeah.
In fact, Kansas and Kansas State are in first place in the Big 12, and Oklahoma is 0-2, Texas 1-1, Baylor's 1-1, Iowa State's 1-1. The top teams, well, you do have Oklahoma State still, and they're always around the leaderboard. But think about that. The top 3 teams, Kansas, Kansas State, and TCU, in that league, along with Oklahoma State. And they might be the winner. But Oklahoma 0-2, Iowa State 0-2 in the conference play so far.
Minnesota and Notre Dame were the two schools that I said were going to be the biggest disappointments on the year going into the season, just because I don't believe in Brent Venables. I don't think he's ever going to be a good head coach.
He's a
great DC, but he's not a head coach.
And for a school like Oklahoma to go to Venables, I know high profile assistant coaches. In fact, he was paid at a head coach's salary as a DC at Clemson. But I would have been it's the whole argument. You're making it's risky when you hire a coordinator. Nebraska might be going down that road a little. I mean, they're talking about a guy that we believe could be a great head coach, and he might be. But when you've never done it, it's like hiring for a position. Hey, you ever been an accountant before? You have any experience as an accountant? No, but I'd really like to have the job. A little different. I think Mickey can win out, but at Venables, I don't know. I mean, they are terrible. Oklahoma is a terrible football team, and it makes me think the SEC might look at Oklahoma and Texas and say, you know what? We changed our mind. You're out.
Now they'll take the fan bases and the money that they're going to bring, but
that's true.
Still, and they'll also take the probably relatively easy W's on occasion. The one thing that's most alarming, or not necessarily, I guess, alarming, but surprising about Oklahoma right now is their defense. Venables is a defensive guy, and their defense the last 2 weeks has not looked good in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they've been awful. I do want to talk about what I saw opening night practice with Waka Flocka, who I guess put on the good show. I left after the practice. I didn't stick around for Waka Flocka. Full disclosure on that one, but I did stick around for the ladies scrimmage, and I stuck around for the drills that Fred Hoiberg did. I'll tell you about him. I thought it was kind of an entertaining night for Nebraska basketball, the first basketball practice. I also want to talk about, after the SEC, what's the second best conference in college football? We can weigh in on that and get off my lawn. I think we might have both the same nominee.
Pretty safe
this week. We'll be back with more. It's Husker Rewind. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens.
Hi, Sean Callahan here for Koppel Chevrolet GMC, and things are cooking in Louisville. Right now, our pre-owned sales are off the charts, and we have loaded up the lots full of inventory. We've got a great supply of Sierras, Silverados, Tahoes, Yukons, and crossovers. Plus, we've got a great supply of back-to-school cars just in time for the big day. Don't forget about all of those new 2022 and 2023 units arriving every day as well. So please take that short, money-saving drive down 144th Street or shop online at koppelcars.com. You'll be glad you did.
I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear. Call me Papa Bear because I'm grilling up dinner. You get it?
Yes, good job.
So what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Cool scene in the locker room. Trev Alberts was there. The athletic director, the head coach, Mickey Joseph, at least on an interim level right now, getting the Mickey chant. Boy, it would be a nice story. We all talk about that story of Scott Frost and, coming home after winning the national championship in '97, doing the stump speech and then going around college. He played briefly in the NFL, going around college football, and the influences he had. We all thought, home run hire. And what a great story it is for Nebraska. The Mickey story has a chance to be even better than that.
Well, especially if he wins.
Yeah,
that's where the failure was on the great story before.
Well, that's why the Frost story didn't work. But if he won, and that's kind of why he got the chant. And if more winning happens, he's going to be the head coach at the University of Nebraska, and the story could be a great one.
Could be
at some point. Speaking of that, we're going to do our coaching carousel. What did I play for it last week? What did I use for a sounder on that?
I thought it was. I don't remember what it was.
What, did I use a sounder for the coaching carousel?
I thought you had the wheel.
Oh, that's right.
You had the wheel.
I had the wheel of coaches, but I don't really have any music for the coaching carousel. But I do have my top 5. I'll give my 5th, my number 5, and then you give your number 5. I've got Dave Aranda at Baylor. Although they are coming off a 36-25 loss to Oklahoma State. So this barometer is going to change up and down. He's known as a defensive coordinator. Nebraska's problem, obviously, has been defense this year.
I have Aranda dropped all the way down. He was by 1 last week. I have him at 5 this week.
Number 4, I've got Lance Leipold. I've heard that he probably would not come here, but he did have a nice win over the weekend over Matt Campbell, another guy on this list for a lot of people. But Kansas now number 1, as we said, in the Big 12 with a 14-11 win. They're off to a 5-0 start? Is it 5-0 or 4-0?
I believe 5-0.
5-0 start. And at the top, nobody would have said that when he was hired, because they've just been for a long time the worst program in college football. But I've got him at number 4.
Out of the blue at number 4 for me, Bronco Mendenhall. He was 99-43 at BYU in 11 years, 36-38 at Virginia for 6 years, overall 135-81. He's unemployed. He could handle the pressure. He showed sustained success at BYU.
He's tough.
Why not?
Yeah, I like Bronco. I never thought about Bronco. I'm going with the same old stupid names that we always hear, like Matt Campbell at number 3 for me at Iowa State. Of course, maybe dropping on some people's list because of the loss, but they play a lot of close games. He's turned that program around. It's Iowa State. That's not an easy job, obviously, but that was a loss, and now Iowa State is 0-2 in the conference. But Matt Campbell, I think, is high on a lot of lists still.
I actually threw Matt Campbell off my list after yesterday's game. And again, it wasn't necessarily the fact that they lost. It was just some interactions he had with players. And I'm like, you know what? I'm good. Yeah. If he's the coach, then yay, I'll support him. But he's kind of off my list for now. Number 3 for me, Dave Clawson at Wake Forest.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know if I like the lack of physical football that Wake Forest plays.
I agree. This is my soup of the week is Dave Clawson's up to number 3.
I like soup. It's delicious. Number 2, got Chris Kleinman for me, Kansas State head coach. Kansas State, which is 1 loss, but they are up there, as I mentioned, with Kansas. Kansas and Kansas State share the lead in the Big 12 right now. 37-28, the win over Texas Tech. That was another good win for Adrian Martinez, but Chris Kleinman is the coach.
My number 2, I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid of the Mickey chance, and I'm going to put Mickey at number 2 for me this week. Nice. I like the changes I've seen. I like the improvements I've seen. I know there's still a long way to go for this team to improve and, win more games and get to wherever we want to be. But I'll tell you what, everything I've seen in the 3 weeks since he's become head coach tells me this is a guy that really understands what needs to be done, not for Nebraska to get back to prominence, but for any college football team to get where they need to go. He just gets it.
Yeah, he's number 1 for me on my list. I've got Mickey Joseph as my top candidate because I want it to be so. I want it to be magic. I want him to win out and just go on some magical carpet ride and, get on the spaceship and he's the hero and whatever. I don't know where the spaceship thing comes into play, really, but I just do. I think that he would be a great story for the University of Nebraska. Even if he gets them to 6 wins this year, I think he should get a shot at being the next head coach at Nebraska.
I have Lance Leipold at number 1. I know you've heard sources and rumors that it's not a job he would take, but for me, he'd be my number 1. There is a new candidate. He is no longer employed by the University of Colorado. Carl Durrell has been fired as of about 20 minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
So that's a little surprising. And as quickly as it happened, he was only there for essentially a year and 5 games.
Well, they're terrible. They are awful.
Do you have an off the wall one? I have one off the wall one.
Yeah, I do. Mike Leach. Go get Mike Leach.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Because we always talked about it, that's who Bill Moose was going to hire because of his connection at Washington State. What if he hires Mike Leach and just pulls a fast one? But then he couldn't because Scott Frost was the national coach of the year 5 times over, and everybody wanted Scott Frost. I think it would have been Mike Leach had it not been Scott Frost.
Hindsight, I think I would have taken that. My off-the-wall one is Dan Quinn, former Falcons head coach, current Cowboys defensive coordinator. Have you seen the Cowboys defense recently?
Yep, they're
They have
good.
13 sacks on the year. So I'm throwing out Dan Quinn.
I went to the basketball practice the other night. It was fun. Had a very good time. I actually enjoyed the women more than I did the men. They scrimmaged some guys who were probably, as we know, most women's basketball teams scrimmage daily against guys. That's just how they do it in most programs that I know of. And so they brought up those guys and they scrimmaged them. And you could tell they were putting out effort. They were practicing really hard. The women were way better than the guys, way better. And they went 40-22. It was kind of fun to watch that. And it tells you that Markowski's good. She had some moves in the post that were impressive. I thought that Izzy Bourne played pretty well. They're going to really be hurt by not having Sam Hybe, but they've got a nice lineup. They've got a good core. Jazz Shelley obviously is their best player.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go. Is with Jazz Shelley leading the way and Alexis Markowski kind of co-lead. Amy's got a solid, salty team. I mean, that's a team that I think is going to have a chance to make a run in a postseason,
Right.
whether, in the Big Ten tournament. Let's see what they do, see what they wind up with. If they have a good enough season, if they get into the tournament, can they win a couple? It's going to be a fun year for Nebraska women's hoops.
It'll be interesting to see what Maggie Mendelson adds. They had
agree.
a little video of her, and she said, hey, fans, sorry, I couldn't be here. I'm playing volleyball. I'm doing other things right now.
Sorry, I'm in Rutgers. I just had a kill.
Probably the best two-sport. I mean, there can't be many two-sport athletes at that level. I'm sure there are a few, but Maggie Mendelson is only 17. So she's trying to play basketball and volleyball at Nebraska at the age of 17, and she's already doing pretty well in volleyball. We'll see how she does in basketball. But the men, they had the three-point shooting contest, which was fun. Casey hit 17 of them and 8 in a row, I believe, at one point from three-point range, and he won the entire three-point shooting contest. They had the women versus the men. And the women won some of them. I think Jazz Shelley won her match. So that was kind of entertaining. But I was not impressed with how they did it for Nebraska. I just thought, all drills. It was all drills and layup drills and stuff like that. There's no scrimmaging, and it made me mad.
And I agree. If you're a fan, you want to see some dunks and you want to see some fun, and the drills probably weren't exactly overly exciting. The thing with Casey, though, and this is what I thought last year, I'm thrilled that he can make three-pointers sitting down on the bench. That's very impressive. But what I would rather see is make a three-pointer with a guy on you. And last year he didn't.
Well, it was tough for him to shoot over. He's just not very tall. And for him to try to shoot over guys, I think is a challenge sometimes.
It is, but then, get open. And the thing was, Fred gave him plays to get open. He got open. He still missed him. And he's got to do it in a game.
Well, look for more passing this year. I think that was the message sent by Fred Hoiberg that, hey, we're just going to do drills. This is not going to be an all-star game again this year. I am the coach. I am taking control. That's the message I got from that practice, but we'll see. That was the first practice. We are leaving.
Yep.
He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. It's called the Husker Rewind, and we'll be back with another episode next week after the Rutgers game.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you prevent wildfires.
Dude, I've got this. I've been camping since I was 5 years old.
But I am a camping influencer.
You know what? I'll bet you $5. Assistant Smokey, what is the best way to put out a campfire?
To put out a campfire, drown with water, stir, drown again. Then make sure the fire is out cold by feeling with the back of your hand.
Wait, really?
I'll take the $5.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action. Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget